Hello and welcome back to another Discovery review. Was I sick in the last review? No, I was sick in the last Eagle Moss review. I have another cough, so there's a good chance that this video might be cut a little bit short because I'll eventually hit a point where I can't speak. But we're gonna hope for the best. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna choose to live by not coughing. That's the title of this episode. Episode 3, Choose to Live. I've always loved that saying from Picard. Of course, Picard, on its own, awful show, but it had a few nice ideas, like some good stuff in it. And please my friend, choose to live was one of those things. So obviously a Qowat Malat. I'm gonna mispronounce that a lot in this episode. An episode kind of dealing with them, so probably Burnham's mom. I don't look into any of these beforehand. Like, all I do is I check the title, because I want to be as surprised as possible. I think it's best that way. The best Star Trek viewing experiences for me were Deep Space Nine and Enterprise. Deep Space Nine I knew literally nothing about, except that it was set on Deep Space Nine when I started. That was it. Enterprise, I knew nothing about except that it had an awful theme song, and that was false. So, I like to go into these things blind. So yeah, I'm just gonna wait for the episode to go live, and I'll see you at the other end of Choose to Live. Hopefully, nobody dies in the meantime. Although that would be amazing for my watch time. I'm a professional again now. I made some money off of Eagle Moss commissions, so I gotta think about that sort of thing. It was a doll. I was ready. I was ready to declare. I think we'd had enough good episodes where I was past the, Picard episode 1 was great part, and I was ready to declare Discovery as a good show. I even did the math. I was like, 23% done. I was ready. And then they flubbed their ending. All their endings in the same way as all the other live endings before. God damn it, Discovery, is it so hard to do an ending that works. I'm not even here for satisfying. I'm here for works. Sure, the gray thing wasn't flubbed, but that wasn't an ending. That was a midpoint, no matter how you tell their story. They live, they die. Like, that's not an ending. That's a midpoint. Shall we start with the Qowat Malat, the A-plot? The A-plot relies on Gawini. I don't remember her name. What was it? It requires Rogue Romulan to not be able to go to anyone about this problem. And I can't accept that, because it relies her to have no faith in the Federation, Navarre, and the Qowat Malat. When the Binars stole the Enterprise D, it was kind of shaky. Like, I know they're binary. It's a yes, no. They couldn't risk the no. It was a little shaky, but, I could kind of let it slip. It wasn't great. In this case, such as so many variables, I can't accept it. The easiest... first off, I can't believe that she can't trust any of them. The Federation is the easiest one to kind of dismiss. They can't trust. Maybe... But, I'm trying to defend it, but... Really, the Federation that is currently growing back, everyone is clearly having faith on them. It's working. They're giving away dilithium left, right, and center to people who aren't in danger. The Navarre government is confident enough in the Federation, who was very much not confident, just a few years ago. They were confident enough in the Federation to be actively pursuing membership, and she can't trust to go up to the Federation, who, mind you, this is the United Federation of Planets we're talking about, and going... hey, there's this trapped species, they might die if we don't do something. Please help? I guess you could argue the Federation... I've done a video on this. The Federation has always been very pro-murder in the sake of the Prime Directive, even when it makes no sense. So I guess you could argue that, assuming they haven't changed in the last 1,000 years. Still, when they're actively pursuing good relations with other species to make huge compromises, and a president will make huge compromises... It's doubtful, but I think I may have actually argued myself into being okay with that one. Editing Nathan here, and I am not at all convinced by this argument. Past me was an idiot. Which is a problem, because we still have Navarre and the Qowat Malat. Navarre arguably may not be able to do as much. They probably still have stockpiles of dilithium, thanks to the Federation. But, Navarre is clearly aligning with Federation values of that helping people as they're pursuing membership. They seem to be a good... I mean, it's classic Vulcan, essentially. They've been good people. Like, they would have helped if they were able to. I don't really see why there would be a problem there. I guess the worst they could do is say no, but I doubt they'd say no and expose the whole situation. Especially if there was an imminent danger of this anomaly, which we'll get to that, by the way. It's weird. But the one I really can't accept, and is the most important aspect of this story, is that she couldn't tell the Qowat Milat. Why were the Qowat Milat a threat to this species? They wouldn't have exposed the species. They wouldn't have tried to go against it. They might have actually helped protect it, being a lost cause. There's probably, stuff in place where you can't really mess with another sister's lost cause, unless, I suppose, you're directly aligned against that lost cause, which how on earth would anyone be? What could the Qowat Milat have done? I'm not sure. But are you going to tell me that there's not some kind of Qowat Milat support group? Like, let's help each other get these lost causes sorted? Or, some sort of intelligence network? Like, why don't they know? Burnham's mom seems to be some sort of head of the Qowat Milat. Why else would she be at, like, all these meetings? Like, why doesn't she know? Especially with how close they are. And then furthermore, even if you accept all of that, right? She looked after this place and didn't even bother to check the cryogenic stasis pods or, like, try and repair them. Like, she's Romulan, not Vulcan, but Romulans aren't idiots. Like, the moment they got onto this cryogenic thing, I was like, why didn't they open? Like, it seems really dumb to schedule your pods for manual override or something and release. But, like, also, was she trying to fire up the moon to move it before there was actually a threat? Like, wouldn't that actually just draw attention? Like, hey, this moon is flying at warp. We should go check that out. The speed of the anomaly is another thing, but I'm actually going to get to that later, so we're going to kind of sidestep it. It was a telepathic distress signal. Like, how could you not transmit the entire history of your goddamn race in a telepathic distress signal, which would include things like, hey, we were supposed to awaken. I don't know what's up. Or maybe the idea that you're still on the journey, and then you receive that and go, hang on, this moon isn't on a journey, it's in orbit. This plot has made me very angry, you can tell. I've sworn twice. And it's not just that she wouldn't tell him, it's that she wouldn't tell to the point where she would murder Qowat Milat and foreign military officials, like Starfleet personnel. That's gonna get Starfleet involved. That's gonna get the Federation involved. That's gonna get Navarre involved. If you're just murdering sisters, like the Qowat Milat would probably do that internally. That's gotten, like, 3 distinct organizations involved. And are you honestly telling me that you're incapable of incapacitating that Starfleet officer without murdering them? An unarmed Starfleet officer, and you're a Qowat Milat. Like, you stabbed him. Why not just do the other end, the blunt end? Hit his gut, and he's like, oh, I hit his head. Like, you're a Romulan. Vulcan nerve pinch. Maybe they had to murder the sister. Qowat Milat and Qowat Milat. Who were those other guys? Who were were those Qowat Milat assistants? Could she sell ton people, but not like Michael Burnham's mom, who was apparently her best friend? So she could tell the Qowat Milat, just not all the Qowat Milat, including one she was incredibly... Oh my god, this plot. I mean, it's classic modern Star Trek. Or at least, the newer stuff, now that they got their feet a bit. Where it was an amazing journey. And even after the endings, it was a pretty good journey, because it went on long enough that I could stop being so angry about it. But it's the Picard. The more you think about it, the worse it gets. And here's the other bit, is, I'm not too happy with how quickly Burnham was to just not bring phasers, especially with how weirdly obsessive Burnham is about this. I will get to that as well. There were a lot of problems. When the Qowat Milat comes in, tries to murder everyone, murders a member of the Qowat Milat, and Burnham's mom is like, I still think I can get through to her. That's the moment where you go, you damn well cannot. Like, it's been made perfectly clear to me, I am in charge of this mission. These are my crew members. I'm responsible for not only my life, but Tilly's life. who I don't even think is competent enough in this situation. She was brought because I had two Qowat Milat sisters who could make up for her lack of tactical training. One of them has just died. You're clearly not prepared to kill her. And she has literally told us, if you step foot on this planet, you are all dead. I am bringing my phasers, which stun, my non-lethal phasers, and you can still interrogate the damn woman. Like, you could stun her, bring her on the ship, tie her up, do whatever, then revive her in a prison cell. I don't care if Books has a prison cell or not. You could tie her up, disarm her. I don't care. And that you can question her. At which point, again, all the reasons why she really should have told her. This plot made no sense because of the ending. Again. And you know why this makes me furious is because if they can't do their simple little A-plot, then how am I supposed to have faith in them to finally pull off a satisfying season-long ending? Something that they failed in season 1 with the Let's Win the War by genocide. No, by a coup after attempted genocide. By seasons 2's just abomination. By seasons 3's let's do Doctor Who. By Picard's... What even was Picard? No, I remember. Just watch the ending of My Poorly Explained. My worst review is the Lower Decks episode Muguato Gumato, which has the subtitle I Don't Like It. Nobody liked that. But, I remember that episode, 0, I Have Opinions. You're here for the opinions. If you don't want to hear my rants, you could probably skip ahead to... Actually, a lot of these are rants, but you could just try the different chapters. And with that, let's get into the B-plot, which is much shorter. Science-y bits, fine, whatever. But Booker, right? You wanted to go into his memory to see the last moment he had of his nephew, because I guess he felt he was missing something, or maybe he wanted to know if there was something more. He wanted to know what his nephew thought about him, I guess. Sure. So he does that, and then he watches from his memory, which we're told he can't change. Bullshit. He watches his nephew turn around and look him in the eye with an expression, with a, like, I love you kind of look. Now, how? Right? My thinking is he had that little empathy magic on his forehead. So maybe he was sending Book, I don't know, lovey vibes. But why wouldn't Book have realized that when he was in that situation? And even if that's the case, how could Book know that his nephew turned around and looked at him? The answer is because this is obviously some sort of fabricated memory from something he desperately wants. We're told, of course, that he can't change his own memories, and I'm struggling to come up with a direct canon example of no, here's why you can't. Surak. There you go. Surak Discovery Season 1, when he's unconscious and Burnham's trying to, like, mind meld with him, and he literally has a fight with Burnham in his own memories. Tuvok, Janeway, when Tuvok's on the Excelsior, he's again having conversations with Janeway, like, as the memory's going on. He's changing stuff. In fact, we know for a fact he changes stuff because in his memories, a crewman dies who we then see in the real world in a picture after the event, perfectly alive and very much not dead, meaning that Tuvok's memory of the event was either altered or he was wrong, which, there we go, here's an example of a memory being wrong or altered. Not only that, he's basically a new species. I would be shocked if this wasn't the first mind meld between a Vulcan and a Quajon. Maybe Book's just so overwhelmed he doesn't go, oh my god, this is exactly what I wanted, hang on a minute. But how does, like, the Vulcan lady not do that? Maybe she's just being nice. I don't know. Maybe she's just like, you know what? This guy needs it. He'll come to the crushing realization that he invented this memory on his own. That's what it is. This Vulcan president is a therapist who prioritizes short-term gain over long-term mental health, which is a very bad therapist. Oh, no. Let's go back to the A-plot. There was the moment where Burnham's mom sat down with Burnham, and she was like, the reason I agreed to this mission is because I didn't know if I could carry this through. I'm like, yeah, gee, that almost sounds like you were holding something back. The Qowat Milat in this episode a lot very much had the sense of, you're not really doing your absolute candor thing. A lie of a mission is still a lot. How do they define absolute candor? It's like everything always exposed and up front. Actually, they're specifically not hiding anything. Like, they were very much well established and have been shown to actively volunteer information they know will be destructive and harmful. For example, when Picard's with Elron or whatever, um, casual alien racism again, and the woman is like, oh, Picard hates children, he finds you annoying. It's like, if the Milat could withhold information, there is an example of information that would be withhold. And that's something at the table that, like, there was a question, I don't remember what it was Burnham asked, but she specifically asked a question of her mother at that meeting, and she just stood there silently, and I'm like, no, you're not allowed to do that. Like, I'm autistic. I very much know and understand the motivation of I'm gonna withhold this information and therefore it doesn't feel like lying. No, that's something that took a long time to break. But that's something she would volunteer is, hey, Burnham, I'm bringing... And like, because the beginning that gets me is the reason she didn't say it is because she knows if she had said it, there's no way Burnham would have let her try to persuade the Qowat sister to her side. And so she deliberately withheld information to get her own way. Absolute candor. It's a very simple principle. Also, can we acknowledge that modern Star Trek is now old enough to where I can complain that they're breaking the canon of modern Star Trek? We've done it, everybody. We've been back on the air for long enough. Some more general thoughts, though. As I said, the journey was great. Sort of getting from here to there was great. It's just when I got there, it was... stinky pile of poo. The gray bits were pretty nice. There were moments where I thought they might actually kill off Gray. Mostly for production reasons. I was like, they're not gonna. He's been kind of too important in promotion to kill him off, but that would have been interesting. And oh my god, I think I've fallen in love with 31st century design interior now. I love the exterior, but the interior, my god. It's Discovery's home, finally. So I'm a computer science major. Most of my stuff is on here. My assignments are on this machine, my computer. I'm autistic. I spend a lot of my time in my dorm alone. I don't drink as well. That seems random, but it'll get important. So a lot of people kind of have their favorite spots on campus and stuff. They study and stuff. I'm just in my dorm. Like, it's just worse to go out. Like, other people, noise, it's distracting, it sucks. That bar in Discovery, again, as someone who doesn't drink, I think that's the first bar I've ever wanted to be in, and I feel I would actually just go and, like, study and hang out there, and I never do that. I don't even know what I drink, but, like, as someone who doesn't drink, but, God, it's home. It's so homely and cozy and nice, and just, I could watch Saru and Culber, just like the true, mature elderly people just hanging out and having a good time. Like, I want to be there. And then other scenes, Burnham's room and stuff. The bridge is still very much business, but like, even Quark's bar, I like Quark's bar. I think it's great. I've never felt, man, I want to be in Quark's bar. I felt, man, I want to be on the set because it's an amazing set, but never, man, I want to be in the bar. In 10 Forward, it's nice, it's got the same homely aesthetics, but like, I don't drink. There's no reason I'd ever want to be in 10 Forward. Maybe the window, but there are windows all over the shit. Discovery, I wanted to be in that bar. And there's loads of things. Like, if my room... Normally, you can see my rooms are very decorated. They've got loads of stuff in them. This is actually one of my least decorated rooms because of college. I'm moving back and forth a lot. If my room was just Michael Burnham's room, I think I'd be happy. I don't need any of my own personalization. That's just cozy and warm, and I love them. Love the Discovery team for finally fixing that and just making it a home. I just wish the bridge was a little bit more cozy and less business work. I get why the bridge is still work. I mean, it's where the work gets done. But I wish it was maybe just some carpet. I don't know. Bit of carpet or like something would probably go wonders on the bridge. The carpeted kind of walls. I don't know. If you're still here after my rant, you're just getting whiplash because I've just absolutely crushed and absolutely praised Discovery. My other big problem, actually, I'll go into, is Michael Burnham's views on killing a Starfleet officer really sat uncomfortably with me. I was very uncomfortable for all of those scenes. And it took me a while to get there, but I think the underlying is it talks as well about just getting justice for it. And I think the main problem is it felt a lot like hearing arguments for the death penalty, and I almost felt like she did want this woman killed. Like, she could just want her in jail. I really hope she wanted her in jail. Like, the Federation. Forget the Federation. United Earth has never had a death penalty, let alone the Federation. No one mentioned going to the Cage Planet because that's a stupid rule. The real problem is it just wasn't Starfleet. Like, there are so many other Starfleet episodes that are just the exact opposite of Burnham's view of, well, we need justice and there needs to be punishment. I agree she shouldn't just go free, but I also feel, why would Navarre let her go free? Like, you know, some jail time, or... Actually, the Vulcans don't do jail, do they? Tuvok implies it in the Voyager episode. I think it's the thought one, where, like, bad thoughts are crimes. Might be the death penalty one. I don't know. He's talking to some sort of alien police officer woman. But anyway, you know, some sort of criminal action or prosecution. Just because, again, you'd be insane not to. You can really hear... I'm trying to get through my points. But also, I think the really thing that's hit wrong with me is the point of Starfleet officers, and more broadly, any sort of police, military, whatever, should be you die so the civilians don't. Ideally, no one would die, right? But the point of any of those sort of policey, keepy people safey sort of thing is the people, and Starfleet has always been, you volunteer yourself. You're saying, I am a Starfleet officer. I will protect the Federation's values, its principles, and its people. And I will do that. I will sacrifice myself for any of those. And I am fully prepared to do it. That is Starfleet. And that's all those things, what they should be. And so hearing Burnham go, oh, she killed a Starfleet officer, like it's the worst thing ever, just runs directly counter to that, because killing literally anybody except a Starfleet officer should be worse. And the fact that it's not is really concerning. And you'd say, like, I mean, I'm not a cop, but I would assume in, like, the depiction you kind of see among cops, you know, if you're a cop and a cop in your station gets killed, like, that's a big deal. Sure, yeah. If, like, someone on your ship gets killed, that's a big deal, yeah. But it's not like the biggest crime someone could possibly commit in the entire Federation, and that's what she's treating it like, and that's why it's wrong with me. I mean, every other Federation funeral is like a died in the line of duty, protecting others sort of thing. This was literally like the worst thing. This was like someone committed genocide. In fact, she was more angry about this than when Georgiou actually attempted genocide. This is the angriest I've ever seen Burnham, and she's seen some really awful things and crimes. Editing Nathan again, because the phrase I really wanted to say and forgot, and it's so important I want to put here, is Burnham's attitudes of how atrocious the action of killing a Starfleet officer was really puts her and other Starfleet officers above others. It really makes her sound like, I am a Starfleet officer, I am better than you. Because the death of this officer, and not the death of anyone else, any other type of person, and any other deaths that may have occurred during the theft of this dilithium, now has meaning, and this is the most important thing. Again, worse than the genocide of the Klingons, worse than anything else you've ever seen. It's Burnham saying, Starfleet officers are better than you and more valuable. And in the long run, that is how you get organizations like, take it away past Nathan. But the point I was getting to is the Federation, Starfleet, is obviously takes its organization, like its ranks and stuff, from the United States Army or Navy or, you know, some branch, that sort of thing. And that's fine. That's just, you know, running an organization. But if Starfleet is starting to remind me of the actions of the American police force and the American military, then there's a serious problem, because those are not really the best organizations, particularly right about now, although the American military has never been great. And the way she kept bringing it up, it really felt uncomfortable. And so I might even go as far to say it is the least Starfleet thing I've ever seen. And I've just mentioned the time Starfleet attempted genocide and then decided, no, we're actually going to give the genocide bomb to someone else to stage a coup. No, I will never get over that because it is atrocious. And what did it add to the episode? It gave some incentive for Burnham to go against her mom, but really, there are plenty of reasons to not think that her mom can sway this operative anyway. Like, again, the fact they came, murdered one of them, and literally said, if you come on my asteroid, I will kill you all. And then at the end, it was still, again, it was to make, like, a lot to make the president look bad. And the script really hates the president, and no, she's not the greatest president ever. Like, she'd never be one of the greats. But again, I'm still extremely confident that she'd be like, yeah, I'm agreeing with 95% of what she's doing, even though I'm maybe agreeing with like 60% of her arguments at best. Like, good things are happening under her administration, and I think she's yet to actually do anything on the show where I've gone, this is a bad thing. Her arguments, her thinking, I don't think they're great. All right, maybe at worst. I don't think they're great arguments. And not even Vance is like kind of weirdly like, oh, it's not the outcome I would have hoped for. It's like, what possible stakes do you have in this where you would have wished for a different outcome? Like, you were tasked with apprehending a criminal, and you did that, and now they're in rightful custody? If anything, this is like the ideal outcome for Vance. Unless maybe Vance's ideal outcome was the Navarre president went, wow, that was a great job. I would like to submit my application for Federation membership right now. And again, Vance doesn't seem to like the president either, for reasons I still can't fathom. I think the last thing before I get my scene is there was a scene that genuinely made me laugh, and then because of this cough, I think the only time I coughed during the whole show I genuinely started dying for was when I actually did take a note of the exact wordings. When Saru told Burnham, you might want to take advantage of Tilly's intuitive diplomatic skills. And then I started one big laugh, and then I just started coughing for the next 2 minutes. Because Tilly's a lot of things. Intuitive diplomatic skills is not at all an attribute I would have described to Tilly. And in fact, on this mission, she basically hindered diplomacy, if anything. Like, she's incredibly awkward and usually just makes herself, and therefore Starfleet and the Federation, seem less competent and everything. Like, is that what Discovery wants Tilly to be, is the diplomat? Because I have not gotten that at all. I'll concede that my knowledge of the specific actions of Discovery and events aren't as good, nearly as good as any of the other Star Treks. Well, the classic ones at least. But Tilly, intuitive diplomatic skills? That is the opposite of Tilly's character. Even if she has intuitive diplomatic sense, like the fact that she cannot convey things diplomatically is basically her core character trait of she's awkward. That's Tilly. That's why the people who love Tilly, is because she's awkward. Have you ever seen an awkward ambassador? Maybe. Have you ever seen an awkward ambassador and go, by God, that person has such an intuitive sense of diplomacy, it's fantastic? No, you haven't. Neelix was a more intuitive diplomat than Tilly, and Neelix had absolutely no sense of what other people was feeling. I think I should get into the scene by scene before this drags on a bit. This video gets too long, and I start dying because of cough. New ship, which is actually kind of weird because it's very TNG for the 32nd century. The coloring, the nacelle glow, and especially the impulse engines and Bassards. I'm just not used to seeing it in the 32nd century. It is so TNG. And at the same time, something about it gives me vaguely Sovereign class vibes. But I also get, I think it's Bonaventure vibes. It's a beta cannon ship. Eagle Moss has a model of it, the like white one, 2B center. You'd know it if you know that ship. I don't know, but just the curves and stuff, almost like something Lower Decks would do. Very 24th century, which is weird to see in the 32nd century. I'm not sure how into that blending of centuries I am, but I think it's always nice to see a new ship, even though I adore the 32nd century, as I've said before. I was trying to figure out why Burnham was in this meeting, because like the president knew she wanted to send her. It's weird that Burnham wouldn't know that ahead of time if she was in this meeting, but then I kind of realized that Navarre president is here and like her mom is here. I think Discovery is basically just serving as a taxi service for, like, any meeting happening at the Federation. Like, truly, the Navarre president isn't always hanging out at Federation HQ, which, might I remind you, is a foreign center of government. Especially as there's no way she can get to Navarre if she needs to be, unless Discovery happens to be available. I kind of feel like Burnham's in all these missions because he's having to taxi these people back and forth. I'm also not really sure why she needed Book's ship instead of, like, Discovery, who could respond immediately. Or really any Federation ship if it's close enough to warp to. Like, yeah, I was a bit confused. I mean, I guess it works, but, like, why doesn't any other ship work? Are there reasons? Yes. Should they have said them? That's my point. You can come up with explanations to explain away just about anything, but my point always is, in a well-told story, you shouldn't have to. I thought this would be a more episodic story than it ended up being. I'm happy for the kind of episodic elements, but I do feel at episode 3, I'm already starting to get a bit tired of the constant 2021 was hard and let's all feel good about it. Because again, it's just not gonna connect with me. But I almost feel, even if it did, even if I had like the worst 2021 out of the entire human population and I connected to literally every one of these characters, would you really not get sick of it? I mean, would you not get over whatever you're dealing with in 13? Not maybe over, but like just heal on your own by that 13th week. Like, I don't know, I'd love to know if you've really struggled this past year and like really found Discovery helpful early on, if you're kind of feeling the same thing, because like they're dedicating so much of these episodes to therapy basically, and over 13 weeks of pretty much the same kind of stuff. Like their individual stories they've done, you know, like Book getting better, Stammen's kind of getting new problems, like his guilt with having to figure this out and then dealing with that. Like those have all been great, but they're kind of long-running ones that either they haven't gotten to yet. It's just like the same thing every scene. I don't know, it feels like it's getting a bit old. But with this scene as well, I just want to say, like, Tilly is feeling really overwhelmed and uncomfortable with her position and responsibilities after you promoted her way too quickly. I'm glad that Discovery is actually addressing that. Yeah, obviously Tilly was completely unprepared and promoted way too quickly, like given way too much responsibility for her experience. She probably would have made a great captain, or even like first officer, great command figure eventually. You just can't do that straight out of the academy. I'm glad they're addressing it, but I'm still flabbergasted that no one who was actually involved in the decision of let's make Tilly the first officer actually went, hang on, you think she might get a bit overwhelmed by this and be not ready for it. And kind of judging by the hints they were going of like paths ending and stuff, I'm almost wondering if Tilly's gonna leave Starfleet. I don't know what else they'd really ever do. I mean, Saru left Starfleet and he's come back like, you know, 2 episodes later. But I think it's very interesting. Here's another example of what I was just saying. Book's better. Like, well, he's getting better. Like, he's better than he was last episode before he was, like, talking with Stamens and stuff. Like, I can watch that all day because I'm watching someone develop. I'm watching a character develop. Still struggling, still dealing with things, but it's changing. It's getting new. It's getting interesting as a viewer. Whereas other people, like Tilly, are like, hey, I'm overwhelmed. Next scene. Hey, I'm overwhelmed again. Still, actually, it's in fact the same overwhelmedness. And like, it's been that for 3 episodes. It's like, could you do something? Book and Stamets are being interesting. At least Adira's changing her situation with Gray now, but like, you know, could you develop? That, you know, keep it fresh. I want to say with this cavern as well, I really feel that this new technology, you know, the screen stuff, the filmmakers are really kind of taking advantage of it, but in the sense that literally everywhere we visit is now going to be a huge monstrous cavern. Right, because before a lot of things were smaller areas because you actually had to build the thing, and making vast CGI areas usually didn't look that great until pretty recently, but it was still harder, so you went with smaller areas. I mean, every alien planet in Doctor Who looks like a Welsh quarry. Every alien planet in Star Trek looks like the Vasquez Rocks. But I almost feel like it's going to get in the way and I'll notice it more and it'll take me out of it. Because I'm like, hey, this is a big empty cavern. Oh, look, those screens. The same with the address at Starfleet Academy. Well, Starfleet Academy, that speech. And it might get to the point of, like, why are there so many gaping spaces everywhere? And I think it'll take away from the gravity. Like in the past, because most things were relatively small or, like, reasonable caves, they weren't gaping. When you got your Borg cube, or your Voth cryogenic chamber, or you got the cave in the Wrath of Khan, the Genesis cave. When you got your areas like that were supposed to be big, huge moments, they felt big and huge because you don't see these things every day. It's like if every single church you went into, the inside looked like the Vatican or La Sagrada Familia, or, these huge cathedrals would become a lot less impressive. I don't know if there's any reason you can't use these screens in a small setting. You can't make the settings smaller than, like, whatever the radius of the screens are, which is pretty sizable, actually, from what I've seen. But I hope we don't see... Well, we will see. But I hope they get over the kind of, we can do these huge areas really quickly so we can kind of get back to that scale and gravity when we need it. This scene right here is no bigger than an opening of the Academy ceremony, which is okay. You could say that's kind of a big deal. Watch this. This scene is no more impressive or large than a speech at Starfleet Academy. Are you getting my point? If everything is a huge open cavern, in fact, like, if everything is like this, then where are these planets even finding the space for, like, all these endless, gorgeous views? Like, yeah, a planet's a big place, but if literally everything is this, you really can't see something on, like, that other mountain way over there? Like, that's quite a low density. I think the Daystrom Institute had a similar thing with a lot of floating things just for the sake of floating. And I kind of can forgive it more in the 32nd century just because of how simple stuff like that be with the advance of technology. But yeah, it's just... not everything has to be that. I mean, there's a fire in everything. Like, it's gorgeous. The blue lighting, but the orange highlights, just the light. It's... I want to live in Discovery. I don't want to work in Discovery. I don't want to go to the Spore Drive or the bridge. Just remove those bits, and then genuinely, I would happily live in Discovery. Just this, the rooms, it might be my favorite. Okay, no. It is my favorite aesthetic, Star Trek-wise, but specifically for recreational areas. It's not my favorite because the work areas are still very cold and metallic, but for just the recreational areas, the bedrooms and the bar, the lounges, it's by far the best that Star Trek has ever had to offer. Gee, guys, we may not be able to write endings, but at least we look cozy. I'll say, actually, I don't know if this was on their set. It probably wasn't, actually, because we've seen Quajon Forest before. But here's an example where a huge open area works. Because, it's a forest. It's supposed to be a beautiful, huge forest. And so, I'm not saying that you can't have any huge, expansive scenes. Just don't overuse them so you can use them effectively when you have to. As we look at Burnham's gorgeous room, surpassing an hour of recording again, I'd like to bring up... it was brought to my attention recently that the Anomaly is a threat, right? Obviously, space is huge and light is slow when you're talking about space. So the principle is the Anomaly would never be a threat because anywhere that it could possibly get to, I think they said the closest system was like 5 light years from the Anomaly, which means that at worst, they would have a 5-year notice to evacuate the planet, which shouldn't be difficult, especially with Discovery. That shouldn't be hard. I wave that away. Because, this is Star Trek. How many subspace anomalies have we had? And that's how you travel faster than light in Star Trek. Subspace was a brilliant invention because it let them go. We're a sci-fi. We're actually following rules. We can flaunt a bit of physics. They show that. But how does this work? Subspace. What subspace? We discover it in like 2036. I think it is. Now, it's going to be a problem in about 2036 if we don't discover subspace, but it's a brilliant invention. How does subspace work? We don't have to know. We just know it does work. The Romulan supernova is, in a lot of side canon, some sort of subspacey event. That's how it can actually be a deal that could threaten the whole galaxy. Well, not the whole galaxy, but actually threaten more than just Romulus, is some of the depictions say it would. There's a problem actually with that theory, because when they first saw the anomaly, they went, this is a binary black hole emitting gravitational waves or whatever. Like, that's a real thing. Binary black holes in a decaying orbit. Like, well, I guess all orbits are decaying, but what they described, that's an actual real thing. You don't need subspace to define this. They never bring up subspace, and they're incredibly confident with what this is. Basically, if the anomaly is a threat, it must be traveling significantly faster than the speed of light. Or at least a threat that could strike with no notice, that we actually wouldn't be able to prepare for. If the anomaly is traveling faster than the speed of light, then they should have gone, actually, it can't just be binary black holes. Like, how is it traveling faster than the speed of light? We're not detecting any subspace things. Or we are detecting subspace. Like, the point is it be brought up. It wasn't brought up. Therefore, the anomaly cannot be traveling faster than the speed of light. Therefore, the anomaly is, at worst, a potential 5-year heads-up problem. And in more likely, a decades, if not centuries, heads-up problem. And so you're stuck with the puzzle. Either there is zero threat, or maybe barely any threat to this season, or the anomaly is traveling faster than the speed of light, and everyone's analysis of it is wrong. Because again, wormholes aren't really a subspace phenomenon. It might be involved in Star Trek, actually, I don't know. They throw subspace at everything. But why would subspace have never been brought up? He even listed the 5 factors that make up a wormhole, and none of them were subspace, I'm pretty sure. Either the character's analysis of the anomaly doesn't make sense, or there is no threat in this episode. Obviously, it's the analysis not making sense, but that's a problem. All you need is, any mention of subspace, or, here's one, 2 binary black holes which have such a strong gravitational effect they are generating a subspace field, allowing the anomaly to travel at warp 9.99. Great. That's still a, heads up. But it's not the best. That's a problem. That's the evacuation of Romulus problem. We have a heads up. We don't have enough. Yeah, sure. I'd be interested if you back and watch the second episode, if they ever mention subspace when doing their scans, but again, you need that line. You don't get the points of, oh, well, if you added that line, then it works. Well, yeah, you know what that tells me? That tells me it doesn't work, because you need to change something for it to work. I mean, that was a great journey. I loved this episode until they tried to wrap it up, which is very concerning, because they're supposed to have fixed their ending problems. I know endings are probably difficult. I mean, not for every writer. I'm not a writer. You think I could do as good as this? Oh, I'd be awful if I took over. But I also don't have to know how to do something to be able to tell when it doesn't work. And if you are a writer, then you should be able to do endings. It's kind of your job qualification. It's as a programmer, if I could program, but I can't program anything that takes user input. I mean, that's pretty important. If I can't do that, then even though sure, I can do a lot, then I'm not really a programmer, am I? If you're a writer, but you can never write an ending, then you're not really a writer, are you? Because you're missing one of the few key components to actually being a writer. You're just very close to being a writer. I think I'm going to end it very abruptly so that I can start editing, go to bed, because I have a very busy day tomorrow. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I really do. I started this with a massive rant. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.